is the most vital resource. Without no children, there's no tribes. Miigwech.
Thanks, Richie. I have Rihanna.
Kihane Washte, good morning. Rihanna Jacobs, ICWA supervisor, member with the Lower Sioux Indian community. Happy that you are all able to make it today. Thank you.
Thanks, Rihanna. Carrie?
Honey Washte, Stama Devi, Makiapi, Tita Wita Hamakaha, Umaha Oyate, Nia. I said in the Dakota language, which is one of the indigenous languages of Minnesota. I said, good morning, everyone. My name is Carrie Owen. My native name is Iron Eyes Woman. I live in Prairie Island. I'm a Prairie Island Indian community, and I am from the Omaha tribe of Nebraska. I am an ICWA compliance consultant for DHS. I've been here for over maybe 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was in child protection. So shout out to all you child protection workers. I know it's hard work, but it's important work. And I thank you for tuning in to learn more about ICWA MIFPA.
Thanks, Carrie. Cindy?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Cindy Miller. I'm a ICWA compliance consultant at DHS, where I have been there for almost 3 years, coming up in July, and I'm from the Lower Sioux community. Thanks.
Go ahead, Ann.
Good morning, I'm Ann Minnie Birds. I'm an equity policy consultant on the ICWA unit at DHS. I'm happy, well, I can't see everybody, but I'm glad that everybody's here and so willing to learn about ICWA MIFPA. Thank you.
And now we'll introduce the SSIS training lead and our mentor coordinator. So we'll start with Eric.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Kratt. I am the SSIS training coordinator lead and also a liaison with the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy. Happy to be here with you again for this presentation on QEW. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of just showing you slides in SSIS, we're going to attempt to do a live demonstration. So we'll get to that after the initial policy presentation with Summer. Glad to be here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Eric. And Heidi. Sometimes Heidi has audio issues because she's in a little bit of a rural area. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Heidi. Heidi's our mentor coordinator with the Child Safety and Permanency Unit. All right, well, thank you everybody for your introductions. And again, this is a quick snapshot of our agenda. We're going to go through the PowerPoint presentation, jump into the SSIS Live. If for some reason we have any issues with that, we'll just move right into the slides that we have as backup, and then we'll get right into Q&A. So with Q&A, as Carrie mentioned, please remember to utilize the Q&A feature for your questions. The reason why we ask you to do this is so that we can keep a digest of all questions received. We're unable to save those questions that come through chat, so it's better that you utilize the Q&A feature. All right, let's grab your coffee or tea and let's begin. All right, QEW, qualified expert witness. Some of the requirements that, or excuse me, the things that we want agencies to remember is that this is an individual that is designated by the child's tribe. They are designated as a QEW. They are a member of the child or a member of the child's tribe. And if for some reason you have issues with finding individuals from the community, you can, or excuse me, from the child's tribe, it could be an Indian person from that community as well, but you want to follow these in order of preference. And then the other option is the expert witness as defined by Rule 702, the rule of evidence. Is there anything from the panel you'd like to add?
Yeah, Summer, just For sure. Usually, we always are. It's usually the designated by child's tribe by QEW. Always develop that relationship with that tribe, so you have that, so you have the information. There's a preference there, but it's usually like you're not getting a hold of that tribe. So it's a long preference. We have to show due diligence doing that. So always contact the tribe. They're the experts in their children.
And I would just want to add to that, it's really good to start trying to get that QEW as soon as you do, it's going to EPC and the child's gonna stay in at-home placement. Start then trying to make sure you ask the tribe about a QEW. Start at that time, the earliest time possible. Sometimes county attorneys are helpful in that. If you can't get a hold of the tribe, county attorneys are helpful.
Yes, some attorneys do it, the QEW themselves, or some, like Carrie said, the social workers have to do it. It depends on which county you're in, which preference you do.
All right, thank you. So for the MIFA requirements, this is just, I don't know why I added this in here, but it's just an additional slide that kind of explains the first one. And again, in the descending order of preference. The QEW is required to have substantial experience delivering children and family services to American Indians, and they must have extensive knowledge of child rearing practice with the child's tribe, and they must be aware of the prevailing social and cultural standards. Is there anything the panel would like to add? For QEW testimony, testimony is required from a QEW for any foster care placement at the admit-deny hearing on the CHIPS petition, not the EPC hearing to support out-of-home placement, but it also is required in out-of-home placement, TPR, TPLC proceeding, and then in consultation with the child's tribe, the court or agency may request help in locating a QEW. For any termination of parental rights petition at the TPR hearing to support TPR, and should be provided at the transfer of permanent legal and fiscal custody hearing to support TPLPC.
One thing to interject, Summer, I know we're not doing the TLC for a QEW right now. That's our current status as DHS, but we're constantly looking into that. Just wanted to make sure everyone heard that. No TLC for QEW.
Right, especially for the review we're doing. If you don't have, you are required to have QEW for OH, for out-of-home placement to support that, or a TPR, but at this time, not a TPLPC.
Okay, thank you. Just to reiterate, for QEW testimony, it's required for any foster care placement at the admit-deny hearing on the CHIPS petition. Not EPC hearing, but to support out-of-home placement. LSSA, our licensed social service agency's responsibilities are to coordinate with tribal social workers to identify a QEW designated by a child's tribe. They must make active efforts to identify a qualified expert witness. They must do their due diligence, and it must be documented and provided to the court of an agency, or excuse me, of an agency's effort to locate a QEW if it cannot obtain testimony. And the licensed social service agency or any other party shall make diligent efforts to locate and present to the court a qualified expert witness designated by the Indian child's tribe. If a party cannot obtain testimony from a tribally designated qualified expert witness, the party shall submit to the court the diligent efforts that were made to obtain a tribally designated qualified expert witness.
One thing, Summer, to add in there for QEW for the out-of-state tribes, we said this before, but to contact the Minneapolis American Indian Center. They're good at getting QEWs because they usually have a relationship with that tribe, especially if you're not working with those out-of-state tribes. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Richie. So now we're going to go into locating those QEW tabs in SSIS. As Eric mentioned, this is going to be something a little different. We're going to kind of go through SSIS Live. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric if you're ready.
And we just want to let you know that if it should freeze up or anything, that we're going to go right back into the screens, and you know, we can't control that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up in case that should happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I have tried to do live demonstrations before in a webinar format, and everything's gone south, but we're going to pray for the best here today. So let me get set up and share my screen. Just bear with me. And for those who are attending the webinar today that don't use SSIS, just bear with us. Part of the reason why we put these webinars together was because ICWA and MIFPA data entry is still fairly new in the social service information system. So we want to make sure that you guys are getting the latest and greatest updated information for how you document your efforts related to ICWA and MIFPA as a local service, social service agency. So give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Everything good? Perfect. So the first thing that I want to show SSIS users is all of the different locations that you can enter court actions for the children in your work groups. So this is my work group case list here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select one of these cases, and I'm going to isolate it with the case in its own window by right-clicking in the grid and selecting that option from the action menu dropdown. And then we're gonna let SSIS decide what it wants to do here. And then we have our case details folder as well as our work group information here. You can enter court actions and QEW information in the court actions folder under case details. Each individual participant also has their own court actions folder. So if you travel down the folders here, you can enter court actions that pertain to this particular participant in your work group under their participant node. So here's that court actions folder here. And you would be able to create, like I said, a court action and QEW information for this particular child. Another location that you can find QEW and court action information is the ICWA folder itself, located over here. The ICWA folder contains those eligibility determinations, any child custody proceeding notifications that have gone out to the tribe and the family. And then you have the QEW court actions folder here as well. Now, if you create a court action underneath the court actions folder for a particular participant or in the case details folder, if there's QEW information attached to those court actions, then you'll also find those court actions and QEW information under the QEW court actions folder. However, if you enter court actions for individuals that don't contain QEW information, you will not find that in the QEW court actions folder, subfolder underneath the ICWA main folder. The nice thing about opening a case within a new window is and creating court actions from the case details folder is that you can duplicate the court actions if there's multiple children or multiple child participants in your case that are facing out of home placement where QEW are needed. You can create a court action for one child and then duplicate that and then just go in and change the name of the child and add the continuous placement should one exist. So I'm going to create a court action from my case details folder. And I do that by either right-clicking or you have other action menu options. You have your lightning bolt in the tree view toolbar, and you have your action button down here at the bottom left-hand corner of your display. But I'm going to right-click from the court actions folder itself and select new court actions. And then this isn't a demonstration on how to fill out the court action screen, but I'm just going to kind of breeze through this. You're going to choose the participant in your work group that is related to this court hearing. And I'm going to select Anna. Anna is our test client here. The court type that I'm going to select is juvenile. And then the petition type is going to be a CHIPS petition. And then notice the corresponding filing date. I'm just going to enter today's date because we're just walking through training. Obviously, you want to select the correct filing date from that date picker that drops down with this field. And then we have the hearing type field that is enabled. We're going to select admit deny for training purposes today. And again, we have a corresponding date field for the hearing type. Again, I'm just going to select today's date for training purposes. And then you have an order or disposition, a long list of examples here. I'm just going to just put a check mark in one of these boxes. And again, the corresponding date field applies here. And then with any court hearing, we want to go to, and that is related to a child participant. You can navigate to the child findings tab, and that's to the right of the court hearing tab here. And you want to select the child's most recent continuous placement or the applicable continuous placement from the drop down. You'll want to include whether or not there was a best interest statement. You'll also want to indicate whether reasonable or active, the court case contained the reasonable or active effort statement. I'm just marking yes for training purposes. Different court cases will include different information, but again, for training purposes, I'm just selecting yes to all of these. And those corresponding date fields become required once you answer these questions on the child findings tab. And then you have the question, judicial findings meet placement review requirements, and that is yes or no. If you select yes to this question, then this court action, along with the QEW information, can be located under the reviews tab in your continuous placement under the permanency folder. Now, Anna has Indian heritage. So we are going to, and we have a QEW lined up. We'll make things pretty linear for you for training purposes. Then we're going to navigate to the right of the court action tab and go to the QEW tab. And then I'm going to right click from that tab and I'm going to say new ICWA QEW. There are some things that are going to auto-populate. The QEW create date is the date that you create this screen. If you need more information regarding policy and statute, as well as ICWA provisional language, you can go to the qualified expert witness help text here at the top of the screen to get that reference information. The worker field is going to default to the worker that's creating this screen. However, you can change this to a different worker. If, for example, a case aide is entering this information and they want to enter the applicable social worker that is working this case. The court date is going to autofill based on the information that you've entered under your court action tab for the court date. And then the court proceeding is going to, you can click the drop down and you have a couple of different selections here. You have out of home placement or you have TPR, TPLPC. And then we have the question here, was qualified expert witness testimony given? This is a required response. For training purposes, we're going to select yes. When I select yes, notice that this field down here, describe in detail the worker or agency's diligent efforts to follow the QEW order of preference. And that QEW order of preference was listed on one of the previous slides that Summer went over. And I will get that exact slide number for you in just a second. But before we get to this field down here, again, you have blue underlined help text to give you QEW detail information. And I believe that order of preference is going to be listed under this help text as well. So to add a grid line in the QEW details container, as we call it, or section, if you will, you need to add a grid line by selecting the green plus. And the QEW name is a manual field where you can enter the QEW name. The QEW type, once you click on it, you'll see a drop-down arrow and you can select from tribally designated QEW, member of the child's tribe, Indian person from an Indian community, or expert witness, Minnesota Rules of Evidence 702. We'll just select tribally designated QEW up here. How is that testimony given is your next header. And this is also equipped with a drop-down. And we have the selections of affidavit, in-person, telephone, video conferencing, or other. We can say in person for training purposes. And then the field, the next column header says QEW tribal member. And that is a drop down where you can select yes or no. For training, we are going to select yes. And then all of the 570 plus federally recognized tribes will appear in this QEW tribe dropdown. So you can start from A and work your way all the way down, or if you know the tribe, you can simply use the free text and write it in. Once you see the tribe appear, you can select them from that dropdown. Now, if your QEW tribal, if your QEW was not a tribal member, then you're going to explain in this field down here again, you know, how you worked through your diligent efforts to follow the QEW order of preference, and any obstacles that you may have run into, just to be as explicit as possible as to how you attempted to locate that QEW. Once you have entered all of the information in the ICWA QEW tab, you can simply save it. And again, like I said, I've created that court action up here under the case details folder. Once I've created that court action for Anna and her QEW information, we should also be able to see that court action under her court action folder as it appears here under her participant node. And we should also, because there is QEW information tied to this court action, be able to review that information under her QEW court actions folder as it displays here. So that's kind of just a basic general overview of how to add that court action with QEW information in SSIS. And I think we can now open up the floor for questions if our panelists don't have anything further that they would like to add.
I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Or comments.
Yeah. I like that question. Read that question about Judy Nord, the first one, I think. It's really good.
Yeah, I think that when we do these webinars, I really like the fact that we have people who call in, because we are not the only experts at ICWA and MIFPA. We really know that there's other people in the community who have knowledge of ICWA, who have way more experience than some of us. And so I'm glad I see some comments here, and we really want to go over them and highlight them. Judy Nord says that the courts are requiring QEW for TPLPC. And like I mentioned before, during our reviews this year, we are not counting that against counties for our reviews, but it sounds like the courts are requiring that. That's really important information for counties to know.
And it has been a gray area. I mean, we've been arguing this point since I've been with DHS. I mean, I've been to CGI training. I asked that question and they said, basically there was a couple of trainers that said yes, but the other trainers, they said no. So it's good to hear that from Judy Norton.
So
She's also just added, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it just sounds like that's how they're doing, that's what their information they're providing in their CGI trainings now too, is that you are required to have a QEW for TPLPC. And like Richie said, that's something that we're working on at DHS, and that may be changing for us soon, but if it does, we will definitely let counties know first. Oh.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you so much.
Second question, we have an incident where we had good contact with the tribal worker, the tribal attorney regarding a case we had in court. When trying to move forward in court, the tribe refused to provide us a QEW that they would approve of. In this situation, how do we move forward?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's unusual for that to happen. Tribes, you could have a great relationship with you and good communication, but that doesn't mean they agree with that the child should be in out-of-home placement. They have a right to say, no, we're not giving you a QEW. And if they don't, that's why we're asking you to really document your diligent efforts that you did, that you've been asking, that you tried, and then you would have to follow the order of preference and document that.
But you should be meeting with that tribe. I mean, obviously they disagree with that placement where that child should be. And they're the experts. They're the experts in raising their children, and they know. I mean, we've been trying for 200 plus years to place American Indian children in homes where we thought we knew the best, but let the tribe decide that and they can figure it out. I would just meet with that tribe and I would try to discuss with that, meet with the director and go that way, because the way you're going to develop something is relationship. That's the best way to go through it. You don't want to be pulling a QEW against the tribe. Against what they're thinking. Just my words of advice for you today.
And then we have another person who has a lot of experience working with ICWA and MIFPA. That's Jill Esch. And as you can see, she talks in here. She's giving some advice on. She's in court a lot. She's talking about it's always better if at all possible to, I can't read this whole thing, sorry.
You want me to read it, Carrie?
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
So Jill is sharing that her statement is, in my experience, it is always better, if at all possible, that the tribe prepares the QEW affidavit. I've seen county attorneys prepare super long QEW affidavits, which the tribal representative did not read carefully. The QEW stated the tribe supported out-of-home placement and TPR, and it was horrible.
Yeah, and we do want to remind you that a QEW would be needed for out-of-home placement. That would be separate. And then if there was a TPR, it would have to be a separate, you would have to get another affidavit or a QEW affidavit to support the TPR. Did I say that right, Richie? You do it better.
Yep, you said, Carrie, I saw where you're going. 2 QEWs we need for out-of-home placement and termination of parental rights. And coming soon, hopefully a TLC.
Yes, but
not now.
So that would be, just for clarification, are you saying that that's 2 separate QEWs?
Yes.
For each, or just separate affidavits? Okay.
Separate testimony or affidavit.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If QEWs are only needed for OHPP and TPRs, would it be best practice to also get one when a family is involved with court, but only with protective supervision, or is this not needed at all?
Not needed.
Well, as you stated before, it sounds like the courts are requiring that you have a QEW for OHP, TPR, and a TLC.
We used to call it TLC, old school.
Yeah. And so it sounds like the courts are requiring us. We want to really make that clear. We got that information from Judy North that that's the way the courts are going right now. But if it's from protective supervision, you do not need a QEW at that time. However, I would be having conversations with the tribe, because if it's in protective supervision, there's a good chance it may, go into court or into out-of-home placement. So keep that conversation going with the tribe. Keep that communication going with the tribe.
Yeah, because then the tribe will be able to make a recommendation right away, because you've been giving that information. So it's always best to be contacting that tribe just on a weekly basis, or as much as needed.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question. Well, the question is, when do we add this information in? I need a little more information. I think I would assume they're referring to add it into SSIS, or if Rachel, if you could provide some additional information for that, that'd be great. Does anybody want to try answering? Or
I would imagine that you would enter it in as you enter the court action. As I kind of went through and provided an example of, as soon as you've got your filing date and your hearing date and your child findings tab is complete, then enter the QEW information once it occurs in association with that court action.
Thanks, Eric. Next question. If tribal attorney affirming she or he in contact with qualified expert witness and working to get QEW affidavit, but after multiple follow-ups, no affidavit yet and beyond 30 days, is there anything additional to do other than continuing to follow up with the tribal attorney and or tribal social worker? Assume should not go outside of tribe down preference list. Assume should not go outside of tribe down preference list.
Yes, you would just have to continually contact that tribal worker, and maybe your county attorney is working with the tribal attorney, but you would have to keep doing that and document your efforts. I mean, I wouldn't stray away from that if you have communication with the tribe.
Mm-hmm. I would, even if it's like that difficult, I'd try to set up a meeting or just go to the tribe and meet them. And it's nice for the tribe to see that you're actually, you're invested and you're reaching out to them. It's one way you can get things done, usually by face to face. If you can do that yet still, but FYI. Hopefully soon.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Did you say that as a CPS worker, we can find our own QEW? I was told by Leech Lake that the tribe decides if a QEW is provided. What happens if the tribe denies you a QEW?
I think we kind of answered this question already. No, a CPS worker cannot find their own QEW. They have to follow the QEW preference. If Leech Lake, the tribe does not provide a QEW, or you have communication with them and they are providing a QEW for out-of-home placement or TPR, there's a reason. They must not be agreeing that this is necessary in this case. So really working with that tribe and working something out with them, have those conversations. Like Ricky said, get up, go over there, invite them, Zoom, whatever it takes to find out how, about why they're feeling like this.
Yeah. And real quick story, I had a story, a QEW where the tribe supported a termination of parental rights for this family. And after speaking to the tribe, this is how important a QEW is. The tribe pulled their QEW a day before the TPR trial. What happened is the judge dismissed the case. So it's really important to have that QEW, because without no QEW, you cannot terminate parental rights. And the judge understood the tribe. They respected the tribe. And he said, this is it. We're dismissing the case. So just keep that in mind. QEWs are an important part of the case.
All right, thanks. Moving on to the next question. If we are working well with the tribe on the day-to-day case things and following their recommendations to not pursue TPR, but they agree with TPLPC, if this is all completed verbally and we can't get the QEW testimonies, then what?
And have that conversation with the tribe. If they're in agreement with the TPLPC, then they'll, hopefully they would be providing you with the QEW. Sometimes there's a breakdown in communication, but if that's what they're agreeing to, then work with them on getting that QEW.
Right.
All right, thank you. Next question. This is the first time I've understood that the QEW needs to be someone in support of the placement. I've always assumed a QEW would be questioned about their position and may not support a placement.
Crickets there.
I don't know if that's a comment or a question, or I don't know how to respond to that. If someone else feels comfortable, go ahead.
I don't know if Judy's here. Maybe she wants to put. I mean, she's dealt with that part before. I don't know if Judy, if you can say anything or not go that route.
This is Rihanna. I would say it goes back to the same comment that Carrie had provided. Having those conversations, having that relational understanding and asking about the testimony and having those conversations as to why they're not in support of the recommendations brought forth to the court. And I think it's important to know that the court, they're determining by clear and convincing evidence that continued custody of the child by the parent or Indian custodian is going to result in serious harm or emotional physical damage to the child. And the testimony given by the QEW is the testimony that's in support of that yes, Your Honor, this is concerning and that serious harm may come to the child. And that's why you give the QEW testimony. So that's why the out-of-home placement testimony is given, as well as the termination of parental right. That's the purpose behind the QEW. So I again would go back to what Carrie is saying, having those conversations as to why the tribe doesn't necessarily support what the county agency's recommendations are.
I don't know if Judy wanted to hear that question again or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent it to her. And her response is, it is possible for the QEW to not support the placement. In order for the court to place the child, there needs to be testimony of a QEW.
Yeah.
Thanks, Judy. All right, moving on to so this is a comment from Jill Esch. I've seen some tribes such as Leech Lake who have stated that while the QEW supports the out-of-home placement at that time, the tribe continues to encourage reunification, and the tribe does not support termination of parental rights.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too. So maybe that's something as a county and working with the tribe, maybe those are some things that you can work out, that they do support this, but they're also recommending that they continue to support that you provide active efforts to reunify the tribe or to reunify the family. So those are just some ideas. I think, Jill, that's great ideas of what we've seen in QEWs from tribes.
And sometimes that QEW can be like, they'll use that QEW for when they go to the second phase, like termination of parental rights, and they have QEW. I mean, that's why they throw that in there, just to keep that, so they know that they only support out-of-home placement and not termination of parental rights. And so there'll be another one coming, but that's happened before too, where they've used out-of-home placement QEW for termination of parental rights, or tried to, so.
I would also add this also speaks to cultural differences from tribal to mainstream. So this can oftentimes be very cultural. And I think honoring and recognizing that there needs to be a place for that.
We've also got some additional information from Judy. She just wanted to add it to her previous statement. She's saying that if the QEW provided by the tribe doesn't support the placement, the agency or the guardian ad litem or attorney for the child could go down the list of QEW options, and there could be dueling QEW testimony. And then the court needs to decide whether this is not sufficient support to place the child.
Yeah, that's happened before in the past. Usually hopefully the judge will rule with the tribe because they're the experts, but that's an option that the other county attorneys or a GAL could do. Hopefully not GAL. But.
I rarely see that, but it does happen. I've seen it maybe once or twice in the reviews.
And it's not good for the tribe. I mean, if we're trying to develop a relation with that tribe, I sure hope that we are meeting with that tribe and we are extensively, active efforts like every week, constantly working with them, find out what the problem is, because there shouldn't be that kind of adversity for deciding about where that child is going to be. It's not good for the county or the tribe or the kids. So active efforts, meeting with them weekly. That's my recommendation.
Thanks, Richie. Thanks, Judy, as well. Next question. Do we have to dismiss our case and or terminate jurisdiction if we are denied a QEW?
I think we just answered that question with everything we've said on top of that. So.
Okay, moving on to the next question. If we have a CHIPS open for a children's mental health case and the child is in out-of-home placement due to their behavior, do we need a QEW if the parent doesn't want the child home right now, wants continued treatment, and the child doesn't want to go home right now, and social services, guardian ad litem, tribal worker are in support of continued OH out-of-home placement?
Is it a voluntary case?
Yes, you would still need a QEW to support that out-of-home placement. It sounds like if you're working with the tribe and they're in agreement with it, they would be able to provide that for you.
Thanks, Carrie. Next question or comment is from Jill. There are some tribes and/or villages in Alaska who do not understand what a QEW is or why it is required. So feel free to have tribes or natives reach out to Jill Jill so that she can provide information and resources, and she's provided her email address here in the Q&A. We'll provide that in chat if you want to copy that as well. Next question. I'm wondering if OHP and TPR cannot occur without support from a QEW. And does the judge have to follow this recommendation?
Again, we already answered this question. Unless anybody else has anything more to add to it.
Well, it is the law. The judge should follow the law, but I can't decide. I'm not the judge, so I can't tell you what they'll do, but they're supposed to be following the law. 23-121 Federal Regs.
Yeah, it is a requirement that the judge follow that. However, how they follow that, that's not our purview. I would say though, if you as the social service agency should really be talking to your county attorneys about objecting if you feel that there are provisions not necessarily being followed by the judge, and bringing forth, those provisions that you feel are being violated. I think that's important, especially when we're looking at our compliance reviews. If you feel that for whatever reason a QEW is needed, or you feel that ICWA is not being followed, I would certainly encourage you as a county agency to have those conversations with your county attorneys about questioning that practice if you feel it's violating ICWA or MIFPA.
Thanks, Rihanna. Judy is also adding that the judge isn't following a recommendation. The judge needs to decide whether there is sufficient evidence to support placement of the child. And then Jill has another comment. in Q&A. Counties need to remember that the tribe is a party and entitled to receive all information so they can prepare the QEW. Tribes should not have to beg to ask for the information from the county. They are entitled to receive the information so they can make the best decision. Correct. Thanks,
And
Jill.
do we have that, did we go over that statute about, sharing information with tribes?
Oh, I don't
And
think so.
was that in the presentation? Okay.
I don't think so. Was it? If I did, I missed it.
Maybe we could put that up in the chat. I
Yeah.
think we forgot to add.
Yeah,
that
we're
in.
trying to improve our
Yeah.
presentation every time. That's one we want to put out there. So we'll get that going.
Next question. How does the permanency QEW impact permanency timeline? For example, child is in at-home placement for 11 months. Now we need to file a permanency petition. QEW states they do not support SPR, TPR, TPLPC.
I think that goes back to having that conversation with the tribe again. Why are they not supporting? What is it that that you as the agency need to work with and have conversations with the tribe about what's not being supported and why that's not being supported, and if there are alternatives.
I mean, active efforts is thinking, brainstorming, looking for relatives. Don't be sending out just the letters to families. That's not active efforts in my mind. That's going out the door to door, finding these families, having a family group conference, finding a solution to find a placement for this child. That's some active efforts that route, especially if you have cases going out that long.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. As part of deciding whether or not the tribe supports a placement, shouldn't they speak to the teenage children involved in the case? The children don't want to go home and are afraid. What then?
Can you say it again? I was kind of trying to get the whole feel for it.
Sure. As part of deciding whether or not the tribe supports a placement, shouldn't they speak to the teenage children involved in the case? The children don't want to go home and are afraid. What then?
Well, the reason why we, oh, go ahead, Carrie.
No, go ahead.
A reason why, I mean, I'm trying to, what I know is what's the best interest of the Indian child is where the tribe are looking to place that child with someone that's familiar with their culture, their organization. So when that child is placed there, they won't lose that sense of belonging to the tribe. Time and time again, we have placed children outside of the ICWA, the relatives, and when they come back, they're embarrassed. They don't understand their language. So that's why we always look out for the best interest of the Indian child. So the child will learn his language and he won't be embarrassed. And if the tribe loses that child, then that's one less person, and that dwindles down the tribe. So every child's important. So that's why we make that recommendation. That recommendation is to stay with the tribe. The tribes are the experts for their children. That's me. Carrie, you want to go on? I see you want to say something.
Yeah. Also, I would just recommend, working with teenagers, it's understandable they're going to be afraid to go home if there's things that happen. So working with your supervisor on what else is there available for us to help this family so that they know that the parents have changed and they have changed. What can we do? What can we do to help this child who is feeling these feelings? What kind of counseling can we provide? What kind of family support? Work with your supervisor on that. I think teens is understandable. Teens can change their mind from day to day, and it's understandable if they come from those situations that they may be scared.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Richie. Okay, so next question. If a CMH client is in need of treatment facility placement and there is no court involvement, how can we get a QEW on board prior to the voluntary mental health treatment and treatment facility for the child?
I'm sorry, I got to read this again.
Do you want me to read it again, or are you reading it?
I'm reading it now, so.
Oh, okay.
if anybody can jump in, that's fine. I'm just trying to.
Would you read it again, Summer?
Sure. If a CMH client is in need of treatment facility placement and there is no court involvement, how can we get a QEW on board prior to the voluntary mental health treatment in treatment facility for the child?
Oh,
In a treatment facility for the child, sorry.
if it's a voluntary placement and you're working to get this child in treatment, it's not in court, you wouldn't need a QEW.
Right. But it has to be truly voluntary. It can't be against their will. If they say, I want to take my child back, then that would be involuntary. So,
Yeah, I'm picturing it where a family, you're working with a family and this child needs treatment and the parents are like, yep, and we're all in agreement to get this child in treatment. There's no court, so a QEW would not be needed for that.
All right, thank you. Providing a statement from Jill Esch. Most tribes do not have the resources to have cases transferred to tribal court, but if the tribe does not support any permanency proceedings such as TLC or TPR, ask the tribe for options they are looking at. For example, would the tribe be willing to transfer the case to tribal court? Thanks, Jill. Next question. This isn't necessarily related to QEW, but more of a general question. Is there a way to find ways to reconnect families to their tribes if the connection has been lost due to adoption or other trauma? Is there another training available for this? Sometimes having that connection or that reconnection could build strength in these parents. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, I know that there's someone in the community that works with reconnecting adoptees to the community. Her name is Sandy Whitehawk. She has, like, I know due to the pandemic, I don't think last year she had a powwow, but there's a powwow she has, and then people who have been adopted but can't find their families, they may attend it, and she has a ceremony to help bring them back in the community in a good way. And she also has resources available that may help people find their families, or resources, and she's happily available to give those out. Unfortunately, I don't have contact information from her right now. I just know her name is Sandy Whitehawk.
I can put it in chat.
But I know if you Google it, she has information online too. If anybody else knows any other resources.
I mean, also you could contact, if they're adopted, you're supposed to contact the BIA in Washington, D.C. to find out like what happened, kind of go in that route and get that information. So that'd be one option. I can't guarantee all information's there, but it's another option.
Right.
Oh, it looks like Jill is saying she can send the contact information, and then there's a recommendation for folks to watch Blood Memory. It talks about getting back in touch with the tribe, and I believe this is the documentary that Sandy Whitehawk shares her story.
Thank you.
Are we done?
I think so. I think we are.
I think so.
Going to finish within the hour today.
Wow.
Jill
look,
has
Blood
one final
Memory.
comment. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, she's saying Blood Memory is airing tonight. Send email to me if you want the link. And we put Jill's email in the chat, so you can email her if you're interested. It is a very, I think, oh, thanks, Eric.
Oh, I don't think we announced that. Jill Esch is the Ombudsman for American Indian Families. So she just gave her contact information in the chat. Thank you, Jill.
Well, I think if there are no other questions, we have a couple of minutes left. Maybe we can just give a shout out to Jill and Judy and those others that participated or provided some additional support today. I also want to say thank you to our panelists for their support and information as well, their expertise. If there's no other questions, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. So thank you all for attending. Please let us know if you have any follow-up questions. We do have the, I'm going to post that now, the DHS ICWA unit email. I'll just put it up really quick or share it in the chat, actually. dhs.iqua.mifpa@state.mn.us. All right. That is it for today.
Miigwech, Igor Awamin.
Thanks, everyone.